Now today, I'm very excited because we are making my baked eggplant parmesan. I am very excited about this. I love eggplant parmesan so much. To be honest, it's actually the original of the parmesan dishes. Chick parm is actually an invention of like Italian-American cuisine. Absolutely delicious. But if you're going to Italy, it's more of an eggplant parm thing. It's delicious. It's such a great, technically berry. Fun fact, eggplant is a berry, not a vegetable. Fun fact with Mary Berg today. You're learning things about botany. But it's really great. It gets custardy when you bake it up. You can make it crispy. It's so good, and it absorbs really nice flavors. So first up, I want to get to work on a little bit of coating for that eggplant parm. Traditionally, eggplant parm is fried, but I don't want to fry this. I want to bake it in the oven. So what I want to do here is I actually want to start by browning the stuff that's going to go on the outside, the breadcrumbs, before it even hits the heat of the oven. That way, we're going to guarantee golden brown flavor and crunch. It's going to be absolutely amazing. So over here, I've got a pan over medium heat, and into there, I'm going to add in about 2 to 3 tablespoons of olive oil. You could use butter if you want to, but this is basically the amount of oil that's going into this recipe other than a little bit in the sauce, so way less than if we were gonna fry it. So that oil is nice and hot, so into there I'm gonna add in about 1.5 cups of panko. Now typically if I am making eggplant parm, I usually do it with like Italian style breadcrumbs or just regular breadcrumbs, the fine ones. But for this one, I really like that added crunch, especially because we're using eggplant, which can tend to be a little bit, again, custardy and soft. So I'm gonna go in with about 1.5 cups of that panko. We're doing like a loose measurement today. We'll call that 1.5 cups, I think. Yeah, that's 1.5 cups. We'll call it that. All right, now I'm gonna season that up with a little bit of salt, just to start it up. Give that a little bit of a stir, and you just want that oil to coat some of those crumbs. So this is my hack anytime I'm looking for golden brown, because anytime I use panko, unless you're frying it, like if you're baking it, it never really goes golden brown. It's crunchy, but it's not the most delicious, and it does not get golden. So if you pre-toast it in a pan before it even hits the heat of the oven, you're guaranteeing that flavor and color. So while that gets to toasting, I'm gonna get to work on my sauce, or continue making my sauce. So here I have got an onion. I've got a red onion hanging out in that pan that I've just been cooking down for about 5 to 8 minutes in a little bit of oil, seasoned with some salt and pepper. Now, I used a red onion because that's what I had hanging around my house when I wrote this recipe. But if you only have like a yellow onion at home, feel free to use that. You just want to use a small onion. That's going to be perfect for this sauce. So into there, I'm going to add in my garlic. So right here, I'm going in with 3 cloves of garlic. Now, typically, I'm a mincer. I'm going to mince or chop today. What do we think I should do? Should I mince or chop? Anybody? Mince. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah. You know, sometimes when you're in charge of like deciding what to play on the radio, when you're like on a road trip, that's my nightmare. I don't like making decisions, so thank you for that. So we're mincing. So I'm going straight on into the pot. Now, when you mince garlic, as opposed to chop it a little bit chunkier, you do get a more punchy flavor of that garlic. So if you pass it through a garlic press or run it over a rasp just like this, you're gonna get more of like a poppy, sharp garlic flavor, which I love. If you want a softer garlic flavor in your sauce, feel free to slice it or dice it into bigger chunks. It sounds kind of counterintuitive, but the more you chop garlic, the more strong it tastes. Kind of like if you think about it, an onion itself doesn't make you cry, but the more you chop it, it does. All those flavor compounds are kind of released, similar with garlic. So 3 cloves of garlic are going on into that pot. And I just want to cook that off for about 30 seconds, maybe a minute, just to cook off that raw garlic flavor. So give that a stir. Looking beautiful. Now into there, I'm gonna go in with some tomatoes. Now I'm using a can of whole tomatoes here. Typically, if I'm making sauce with canned tomatoes, I like using whole tomatoes because they are the kind of most fresh variety of a canned tomato. Something that's chopped or pureed, it's still really tasty, but it doesn't have as much of like a fresh tomato flavor. So that's what I'm going for today. If you have a can of diced in your cupboard or a can of crushed, feel free to use that, no issues. I'm going straight on into the pan with that beautiful tomato, with all of those juices. Give that a good stir just to combine. And now I wanna go in with a little bit, where are we going with the heat? There you go. I wanna go in with some herbs. So I'm going in with some fresh basil. If you don't have fresh basil, you could use Italian seasoning in there as well. But I'm gonna use 2 whole sprigs, so chop off the sprig. Or if you get those little kind of clamshell packs, just use the whole thing, stem and all. I'm gonna throw these into that sauce. Now, those leaves I'm gonna pull out later. This is almost gonna be like basil tea in that beautiful sauce. It's gonna infuse into that tomato situation. Absolutely beautiful. So I wanna turn the heat down on that to about medium-low and let that start cooking. Once that cooks for about 20-ish minutes, you're gonna end up, give your panko a toss, you're gonna end up with something that looks kinda like this. Delicious, okay. So right now, I'm feeling excited about that, I'm not gonna lie, but this is what you wanna do. Since I used those whole tomatoes, I actually wanna use my wooden spoon to kind of break them apart. First, I'm gonna fish out those little bits of basil, because we're done with those. They've done their job. So just do your best to kind of find them all. If you don't find them all, don't worry, basil's edible. You can eat it, all right? Pop that in there. But I wanna crush those tomatoes. This is the key. Don't wear white when you're making this. Pretty much every time I make a tomato sauce, I'm unintentionally wearing white. But if you are, or you just don't wanna get dirty, feel free to do a Berg apron, which is where you get a tea towel, and then you just kind of put it onto yourself. You don't cover your microphone if you're on television, because then sound's gonna be mad at you, but you kind of hold it like this, and you smush those tomatoes. And this is where it gets messy. You see those tomatoes starting to like burst in the pot? That's gonna get all those juices out. It cooks down, they get really soft and jammy. Just crush them, kind of until you can't really crush them anymore. And you get those big chunks of tomato. It's gonna be fresh, it's gonna be amazing. Absolutely delicious, that one's gonna pop for sure. There you go, okay. Feeling good? Now I wanna keep that sauce low, but I wanna season it up a little bit right now. We've got a little bit of salt, got a little bit of pepper in there, but I like a little bit of extra heat. So I'm going in with some chili flakes. Just about half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. I like that little bit of spice. If you don't, feel free to leave it out. I'm gonna go in with about, again, half a teaspoon, maybe a little bit more. Oh, we got it, ooh, so I'm going in with more. I like things spicy, y'all. It's very good. Now, to counteract that spice and anything that's a little bit too acidic in there, I'm gonna go in with about 2 teaspoons of some sugar. So not a ton, but that's just gonna sweeten things up. It's not 100% necessary, but I sometimes find cooking down tomatoes can make them a little bit bitter. So that sugar's just gonna counteract that. Give that a nice stir together. Looking absolutely beautiful. You can crush those tomatoes down more, but I'm gonna cover that up. Keep that over low heat just to keep warm while I get to work on the rest of this. So take out this panko. Come take a look over here. So you see the panko? I'm gonna give it a toss and you're gonna see the golden starting. See that little bit of golden? So you'd wanna toast it a little bit more to give it more of that color. But right now I'm just gonna move ahead and we're gonna get to work on the coating for the eggplant. So I'm gonna add that panko into a shallow dish. Just add it into anything, like a pie plate would be perfect, anything like that. And into there, to give this eggplant parm the namesake, a little bit of parm, I'm gonna go in with a half a cup of ground Parmesan cheese. Now, I'm talking the stuff in the shaky can because that's what I like, I'm sorry. But it cooks up beautifully. But if you don't have the stuff in the can, or maybe you're just like, absolutely not, you can use the stuff that's ground at the grocery store in the deli section. Don't use grated. Grated tends to burn a little bit easier. This stays nice and gives a good crust. So go in with about a half a cup of that right on into that mixture. Give it a little bit of a toss. And then I'm gonna season that with a little bit of some Italian seasoning. So I want about a teaspoon of that dry Italian seasoning. Really, really tasty. There's a little chili in here too. And then I'm gonna go in also with half a teaspoon of garlic powder. This gives such a nice kind of flavor, roasted garlic into there, really, really nice. So half a teaspoon in. Season that up with salt. You could add some pepper if you want as well. And just give that a good toss together. So right now we've got the crunch from the panko. We've got that delicious cheesiness. I'm feeling very excited about it. But basically now we need something to help this stick onto that eggplant. So we're gonna make my patented food gloop, which is 2 eggs into a shallow dish, again, perfect for dredging. And then to make these eggs gloopy, typically if you're dredging something, you usually just use an egg wash, but I like to gloop it up a little bit with some mayonnaise. And that sounds strange, but when you think about it, mayonnaise is essentially just eggs and oil together. So it's got a lot of flavor and it is for sure gloopy. So I'm going in with about a quarter cup, about 4 tablespoons of that mayo, right on into the eggs, and get ready to watch Food Gloop come alive, because this looks not great, but this is the stickiest stuff in the kitchen, and it's gonna make everything so easy to dredge. You don't have to do a flour dredge first. This stuff gloops onto there into the panko, and you're good to go. Now, real quick about eggplants. We have got eggplants here. You want to use about 2 medium ones for this recipe. I know a lot of people are going to tell you that you need to salt it because they're bitter, but most of that's been bred out of commercial eggplants. So you don't need to salt it at all. You don't need to drain it. You can just slice it into about 1 centimeter thick slices. Grab one of those slices, pop it into that food gloop, if you will, just to coat, and then into those beautiful panko crumbs, pop some on top, press them in, and you've got a perfectly dredged little bit of eggplant. So I gotta pop these babies into a 375-degree oven, and those need about 25 to 30 minutes to start baking up. They're gonna get golden, they're gonna get crunchy, the inside's gonna get custardy, and it's gonna smell so good. Okay, I'm already very excited because you get to take a gander at these little babies. They cook down, they get almost jammy. Now, if eggplant is not your #1 vegetable or berry or whatever you want to call it, if you give it this treatment, oh my gosh, eggplant's the best thing in the world. I love this. My husband Aaron is obsessed with chicken parmesan. It's his favorite thing in the world. I find so many different ways to make it for him, but anytime I do, I make a little eggplant parm for me on the side. I'm turning him into an eggplant parm lover. Don't worry, though. We're getting there. All right, now, basically what I like to do now, typically when you're doing eggplant parm, you usually stack it up with some sauce and cheese, obviously, and then bake it up in a casserole dish. But sometimes I find that makes it so it doesn't stay crunchy, and I just went to all this effort to make this crispy crunchy, so I don't want to get rid of that. So what I like to do is almost make tiny little pizzas, like little tiny, they almost look like microwave pizzas. So get some of that beautiful fresh sauce that we made, and just kind of pop a little bit onto each little round. This feels a little finicky, but again, what we're doing is we're maintaining the crunch on the bottom, the crunch around the side. We've got that beautiful oniony, tomatoey sauce with that basil infusion that we've got. You don't have to be as neat as I'm being right now. You can kind of just smack it on there and you're gonna be delicious. But this is a fun thing. I like making tiny pizzas. It reminds me of making like, did anybody make like bagel pizzas as a kid? Or those little ones? In the microwave that when you would eat them, you would burn the whole roof of your mouth? Yeah. Because you simply could not wait. This is kind of what it reminds me of. All right, so you just get that sauce on there. You'd continue until all are covered, and then you want to scatter the cheese on top. Now, I've got about 80 grams of grated mozzarella cheese here. If you wanted to use fresh mozzarella, you could. I actually like using kind of low moisture brick-style mozzarella because it gets a little bit golden brown in the oven. So again, continuing that pizza trend, just pop a little bit of cheese on top of each one. If any falls off the side, that's okay. That's gonna get crispy and crunchy, and I call those chef snacks. We can call it a frico if you want to be fancy, but basically it's just crunchy cheese. So just scatter that all over all of those sauced little rounds. And you're gonna end up with like cheese on every single bite, sauce on every single bite. It's gonna be amazing. So now I need to pop this back into that 375-degree oven for about 10 minutes, just until that cheese melts and is a little bit golden brown. If you're feeling a little impatient, you can use the broiler. I just end up burning things if I use the broiler. And you end up with things that look like, again, tiny little beautiful pizzas. It's cheesy, it's delicious. I'm very excited about that. Now, to serve this, there's so many different options you've got. You could stack them up in a little tower, serve it with a salad on the side. You could put this next to some pasta or on top of some pasta. You could also just kind of grab that leftover sauce you've got and serve it up on a platter, almost like a side dish or a main, whatever you're feeling. So just spoon some of that beautiful sauce down. Again, if you want this sauce to be a little bit smoother, you can feel free to puree it. But again, this is a veg-forward dish, so we kind of want to celebrate all of that delicious vegginess. So add that right onto the plate. Then you want to get any sort of lifter or flipper. And I like to almost like a deck of cards, kind of arrange this in like a little bit of a layer. You get that creamy eggplant, the crunchy panko with that Parmesan on the outside. Again, no one will know if you do choose to use the one in the can, no one will know. I will be happy because I love it so much. That looks beautiful. Now on top, a little bit more Parmesan cheese. And then obviously, some fresh basil. Now, if I'm adding basil to things, if you've got the fresh basil on hand, I absolutely love using it. You can go on with whole leaves, or if you want, you can kind of tear it. If you tear it as opposed to chopping it, it tends to have more aromatics. It doesn't bruise, it's really tasty, and that to me looks like a complete dream. You put that down on the table, everybody's happy. I've shown you this. This is like people are coming over for dinner, very exciting. You could do it with pasta. You can have a salad on the side, but my preferred method for eating eggplant parm is on a bun. So I'm gonna build a little sandwich. So I'm very excited. I got a toasty little bun here, a little bit of that sauce down. I've also seen if you did want to add some meat into this recipe, you could easily do that by just adding a little bit of prosciutto wrapped around each slice of eggplant before you dredge it. Oh my gosh, out of control. I'm going on with a little stack, maybe one, maybe two. I'm gonna stop at two. A little bit of extra parm on top, and then again, some fresh basil right on there. Oh my gosh, I'm very excited. Okay, shall we see if I can fit this in my mouth? Okay. I might have overestimated things. Okay. This is good TV, right? Okay, cool, here we go. And in 3, 2, 1, let's do it. That is so good. That is sloppy. I probably have lipstick all over my face. You have to try this tonight. I really hope you do. And again, it's not too late if you haven't gotten your groceries yet. Just hit up all of our social media channels. We've got the list on there.
Hey, Mary here. What did you think? Drop your comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe for more of the good stuff.